All right. What's up, everybody? So I wasn't planning on doing any streams until next week. Had kind of taken a step back and figuring out how to do all this stuff with COVID going on. But now with the news that surgery's coming up and I might not be able to do these for a bit, wanted to jump in and do one today. I think there's some good stuff on the docket. So uh yeah, so let's jump into some games. So to be honest, on the first four today, I feel like I have quite a bit of stuff. And then on the last one, the Lakers and the Kings, we'll have a little bit, but not quite as much on that one. Absolutely hit me up with some comments. Let me know what you like. I really appreciate how on Twitter some of you have been hitting me up with your best bets and things that you're seeing on these games. That helps make me better, and I really enjoy it. So definitely hit me up with those comments as you've got them. And let's go ahead and dive in. So, first game up, we have Memphis and Cleveland. Memphis has been on an absolute roll lately. And honestly, I got to get over a little bit of my aversion to John Morant. So, I really was loving the Grizzlies while he was out. Felt like they were playing well, especially on defense. But, they've been playing great with him lately. And he's been having some great games. And I think the biggest thing for them is that their defense has been showing up. And that was the thing I wondered about the most with Morant coming back. So today, as we look at this game, Memphis is on a 5-game winning streak, and they have an 11.6-point margin of victory on average, which is a pretty wide margin. So they're winning these games pretty easily. And actually, yesterday they were destroying the Nets and let them back in a little bit at the end, but really controlled that game from beginning to end. On the Cleveland side, we always have to look at who's in and who's out, and Garland is obviously the big question here. It does look like he's supposed to play, and I would say that this line that's out right now definitely reflects him playing. Cleveland's -2.5. I can't imagine them being giving points if Garland wasn't going to play. And so if he's out, I absolutely would not want to lean toward Cleveland. I think I would definitely lean toward Memphis then. They did play once this year already, but it was the first game of the season, 132-121 Memphis. I don't think we take anything away from that, going that far back. Okay, so a couple key stats here, and I did dive a lot deeper in today. And I think there's some interesting stuff here on these key stats. The first one is Memphis' rebounding. And I've talked about this before on Memphis games, but the Grizzlies have been absolutely destroying the boards over the course of this 5-game winning streak. They've had 61, 58, 43, 50, and 53. Just phenomenal rebounding numbers. They're number one on the season overall with 47.8 rebounds per game, but they've gone over that in 7 out of their last 10. So just getting a ton of second chance points, not giving those second chance points to the other team, that's been a real key to their victories and them playing so well lately. So how does Cleveland do on the rebounding side of things? Well, we know that we have Allen and Mobley back now, so they do have their size in the front court back, which is super helpful. Cleveland allows 40.72 rebounds to the opposing team per game at home. But here's the big thing is they've only allowed 50 rebounds to the opposing team once the entire season. And so, we can have these anomalies up and down, and that can make it tricky to use averages when we're trying to cap things. And so this is one where I think it's really key that they've only allowed 50 once all season. We shouldn't expect that they're going to do that because that 50 number for Memphis is a huge one. They tend to roll when they get over 50. When Memphis has 42 or less rebounds, though, again, Cleveland only allowing 40.72, they're 2-9. And their average loss is by 19.4 points a game. So when they are down nearer the lower 40s in rebounds, it's just as much of an indicator that they're not likely to do incredibly well in a game. So this is going to be an interesting thing to watch. I share this actually not because I think it makes all the difference in terms of which side we'd take here, but just to say it's really unlikely that Memphis is going to get to that number of over 50 that they need to get to just absolutely steamroll teams. At the same time, they're a really good rebounding team, number one in the league. And so it's likely that they would do better against Cleveland than most other teams do against Cleveland. So it wouldn't be shocking to see them go over Cleveland's average of just 40, over 40.5. So somewhere in that 40 range. The other key stat that I'm looking at here is Cleveland's 3-point percentage. This seems like the stat that's most correlated to their wins lately. And in the last 6, they have been pretty bad overall. 23.1%, 32, 28.6, 34.1. They did have a 42.3, and that's when they destroyed Toronto 144-99 when everybody was out for Toronto. I don't think we can do very much with that one, but then 23.7 in the one before that. Now, obviously, Cleveland's had a lot of shakeup on their team. Garland being out made a big difference here. Rubio's out now, which he's not a phenomenal three-point shooter, but you look at his stats on the season, he was actually shooting between 33 and 34% on the season, so not terrible. So they've been hit hard, and I think that they should come back from some of this poor shooting. They averaged 35.7% at home. And when they're at 36% or better, so just better than their average, they're 11-3, and they average 115.9 points a game. Memphis actually allows 38.4% from three-point range away from home, but they have held teams under 36 in 4 out of their last 5 and 6 out of their last 10. So that goes back to what I said at the beginning, that Memphis has actually been playing good defense lately, even with Ja Morant. And yes, I know I need to get over it, like that they can't play good defense with Ja Morant. And so when you look at these key numbers, Memphis is rebounding Cleveland's three-point percentage. I would just say that there's a good chance that both of them land kind of in the middle here. I don't expect Memphis to dominate on the boards, but I don't necessarily expect Cleveland to absolutely go off from three-point range either. Even if Garland is back, it could take him a little bit to get back into the swing of things. And they've got to adjust to Rubio being gone now and stuff like that. Looking at the trends on this game, very strong against the spread trends for both teams. So, I mean, that doesn't really help us on the trend side, but really good trends for both, actually. Memphis is 4-9 in their last 13 against the spread versus Cleveland, and the under is 4-1 in the last 5 in this specific matchup. So when I capped this game where I thought it should fall, and this is where it's hard for me to take a side pregame here, I put Cleveland at -3, assuming Garland plays, and the total at 221. I haven't looked again here recently, but when I checked, Vegas had it as Cleveland -3, and the total was 217 or 218. So this is a spot where I might look to play something live because I think that this should be a close game. The other thing to consider here is that Memphis is on a back-to-back after playing the Nets last night. That hasn't seemed to affect them too adversely this year, and they're a young team, so I don't think that'll be too big of a deal. Just to say, I expect this to be a close back and forth game. And those are the kind of games that I tend to like to get involved with in the second half live. But maybe you have some other angles that you're seeing, and some of those stats maybe line up with other things that you're seeing. So that's the first game. Moving on to the next one, we have the San Antonio Spurs taking on the Toronto Raptors. San Antonio definitely with some big people out right now because of COVID. DeJounte Murray, first and foremost. I mean, he's obviously the driver of this team and has been having a phenomenal year. But also Doug McDermott and then Lonnie Walker, less important. I think McDermott is the one who, not as important as Murray for sure, but I think he actually is an important piece for this team. I was going through and looking at what the Spurs have done without each of these three. Again, it's hard to go in and get the data for what they've done when all three are out together. It's such a small sample as well. But Murray's been out for 4 games now. And it's actually interesting that their offensive rating is only about 1.5 points better when he's in than when he's out. Again, that doesn't necessarily correlate to points, but it just was less of a difference than I thought it would be. Defensive rating, though, they're 4 points. They're 4 points better without Murray, actually. And then McDermott, again, more of an impact on defense, actually. They're 2 points worse on defense when he plays compared to when he doesn't. So maybe that offsets Murray a little bit. But this is what I was looking at on the offensive side. So with McDermott this year, they're averaging 112.5 points a game. He's been out for 9 games, so this is a decent sample size we've got with him now. And they average 108.7 when he's not playing. So a 4-point difference in points scored for McDermott. And obviously having Murray is helpful. The numbers actually don't back that up. Straight data. They're 7 points better per game with Murray out, but I think there's other stuff we'd have to look to there because we know how good Murray is. Lonnie Walker doesn't make too big of a difference either way. But just looking at those stats overall, I would say that it's likely that the Spurs are going to struggle to score. And we've seen that in the last 2 games with these guys out. They scored 105 points in both of those games in regulation, one against Memphis, who has been playing pretty good defense, and the other one against Detroit, who's playing okay right now. They just beat Milwaukee last night. So that's, they're maybe playing all right, but still to only score 105 against Detroit in regulation isn't real phenomenal. And so I think the Spurs definitely could struggle to score here. One of the things that we may see change in this game a little bit is the pace. I think Toronto may trend up now that they have everybody back and they're getting healthy. They're playing slower this year than they did last year. They are playing at a 96.21 pace this year, where last year they played at 99.18. So about 3 points lower. And I think that could start to come back to the norm from last year a little bit more. And then the Spurs have actually been playing fast lately. I actually had thought before looking at this that maybe they'd slow down without Murray in there because of how he can push the pace. But they've been over 100 in pace in 4 out of their last 5 games. And the one where they were under was 99.61. So actually have been playing at a pretty fast pace. So I expect both of these teams, Toronto earlier in the year, especially when they were struggling at home so much, it was a lot of low scoring games, really struggling to generate anything on offense, extremely slow pace. But I think we start to see that turn around now that Toronto's getting healthy. On the trends for this one, again, strong against the spread trends for both teams. So again, that doesn't help us a ton. On the Toronto side, a lot of strong trends to the over. The over is 8-3 in the last 11 in this matchup in Toronto. And then a couple trends in this specific matchup. San Antonio's 4-1 against the spread their last 5 at Toronto, and 8-2 in their last 10 overall versus Toronto. So pretty strong trends for San Antonio here. I've seen a decent amount of love for Toronto out there, and I get it because they're getting healthy, and I do think they're trending up. And definitely with the people that San Antonio has out, there's reasons to fade them here. But I also think that looking at the numbers and looking at the trends, I wouldn't have a ton of confidence laying the kind of spread that's out there now. When I line this game myself, again, I did put it at like -7.5 for Toronto, which I think it's like 6.5. So that's okay, though I don't see a ton of value there. And I had the total around 224. Last I looked, it was 222.5. So again, just not enough value. But so this for me is going to be, unfortunately, a little bit of a theme here so far. But so far, this is going to be another game I probably look to live bet. I think that if San Antonio can play well early, maybe we get a better number on Toronto. And if this game bogs down early, maybe we can get a lower total. If we could get that thing down, 210 to 215, I'd feel a lot better about taking the over than where it stands right now. So that's what I'm looking at for San Antonio and Toronto. Next game up is the Pacers and the Knicks. This is one where we definitely have to watch who's playing. We know that Walker's still going to be out for the Knicks, but Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson are the ones we need to watch here. Both are game time decisions, and obviously both make a significant difference. And I think they make a bigger difference in this game than they necessarily do all the time. And that's because what the Pacers have right now is basically Sabonis and Turner. Everybody else is out. LeVert, Duarte, Brogdon, even Lamb, all out. And so they're really going to have to rely on their size and their dominance in the paint. And here's the thing. If Robinson and Randall both sit, the Knicks are left with very little in terms of size or any resistance that they can offer in the paint to these guys. But if they play, I think they match up okay to at least negate those guys a little bit and take away some of what the Pacers are best at. The Knicks have been really bad. It's really hard to bet on the Knicks period lately. They've shot 33.3, 19.5, and 25.8 from three-point range in the last 3. And Indy's actually been defending the 3 well. They've allowed under 30% in 4 of their last 10. So almost half the time, under 30% against a team that's been shooting terrible from three-point range. So I think that's something to watch in this game tonight. The Knicks have struggled so much to get it going on offense, and I think they're going to need some of that three-point shooting in order to be able to make anything happen on offense. At the same time, Indiana, if Randall and Robinson play, I think they're going to struggle to do a ton on offense too, because they just don't have good guard play at this point to generate a lot of offense. Indiana has been consistent over their last 4. They scored 104, 106, 108, 105. So right in that same range. And so when I look at this game tonight against a Knicks team that isn't very good on defense, but has tended to play a lot of low scoring games, I think maybe Indiana scores in that same range tonight, somewhere in that 104 to 108. The question is whether the Knicks can generate enough offense to go there with them. When we look at the trends for this one, Indiana's 0-3-1 against the spread in their last 4 away from home. The Knicks are 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 at home. So it's almost like a game that nobody wants to win. There's very strong trends on the under on the Knicks side, and that's because they haven't been able to score. They've been really bad on offense. And there's also some strong trends toward the under in this specific matchup. Really, to sum this game up, I just think this is two relatively bad teams, really depleted in terms of their rosters. And it's going to be interesting to see if either one of them can generate offense. When I lined this game, I lined it as Indiana -3 and a total of 207. And last time I looked, Indiana was +1.5. So this is the first place where I see a little bit of value on the Pacers. Maybe not massive value. Again, for me, a lot of it is if Robinson and Randall play or not. If not, I think Indiana could dominate in the paint. I think Turner and Sabonis could go to work against a Knicks team that just hasn't been good no matter who's playing. And I think this would be a good spot, man, to be getting points or get plus money on the money line for Indiana. I'd be a little more hesitant if those guys are in. And then the total was a 206.5. So while there's trends to the under, I don't see data to say that that's a great play. I actually think if I was going to go on that play, I would maybe take the Knicks team total over the under for the game, because I think they're the team that's likely to struggle more to score. So there are a couple spots that I'm looking at here that I like and may move on. I haven't made any plays yet on any of that, but that's maybe the best spots I've seen so far. Next game is the Suns and the Pelicans. And this is one, this breakdown may be a little bit longer. I went pretty deep into this one. I think this is a fun game, and I think there's potentially some good spots here. And so just really wanted to do the due diligence to cover every angle I could to make sure I was making the best plays. So we do have Ayton, Crowder, and McGee still out. Now, that's a big deal to have Ayton and McGee out, I think. When you go back and look at the numbers, the Suns have actually done fine not having one of their big men in. It obviously helps them, especially to have Ayton. But to have both those guys out, it makes them play smaller. And against the Pelicans, that matters some because Jonas Valanciunas is one of the best players the Pelicans are running out there. Obviously a big. And so if he has an easier matchup, that's going to allow the Pelicans a little bit more of an opportunity to be able to score and maybe stay with Phoenix in this game. But we'll get to that. The Pelicans are on a back-to-back. They're 1-5 straight up on back-to-backs, or on the second half of a back-to-back. But they're 3-3 against the spread, so about 500. So not terrible, especially for a team that's not 500 overall. So that's fine. When you look at Ayton and McGee, I alluded to this, but with Ayton, and again, this is going to be purely based on numbers. Like, we know that the Suns are better with Ayton overall, but they actually have a lower offensive rating, a worse offensive rating, and a worse defensive rating with Ayton compared to without him. That's a 12-game sample size now, too, so that's a decent sample. Now, without McGee, it's only 2 games, but those games were also without Ayton, so we can infer not just without McGee, but without both these guys. The offensive rating, again, is actually better without them, and maybe that's because they're playing smaller and faster. I don't know, but the defensive rating is 5 points better when McGee is playing, and by proxy when both these guys are playing. And so I think what we're going to see is a Phoenix team that still functions really well in offense, but maybe isn't quite as good on the defensive end, especially in this particular matchup where they're going against a good big in Jonas Valanciunas. So a few stats that I looked at here, one quick one and then one that I dove into a little deeper. So the quick one is just the Pelicans' field goal and three-point percentage. In the last 10, when they shoot 45% or better, they're 4-0, and when they're under 45, they're 2-4. Phoenix allows 45.1% away from home, but they have allowed over 45% in 4 out of their last 5. So this is definitely a number that I think the Pelicans could potentially hit or be right around at least. especially if they get something better out of Ingram tonight. He's one I'm watching to see if he plays on the back end, but he shot 16.7% from the field last night. I don't imagine that he'll do that again. He was coming back off of an injury. And then on the three-point percentage, when New Orleans shoots 35% or better, they're 6-0 in their last 10, 0-4 when they don't shoot at least 35%. Phoenix allows only 32.8% away from home, and they've held opponents under 29% from three-point range in 6 out of the last 10. So that's a number that sticks out as a real positive for Phoenix. I think this, again, is why the Jonas Valanciunas thing is a big deal, because if he can dominate in the paint, it can mitigate some of the issues potentially with the three-point shooting. So that one may be a little bit of a wash. I think New Orleans could struggle from three more than they do just from the field. The other big thing I want to get into is Phoenix rebounding. When I really did a deep dive today, this has a really strong correlation to their winning and point scoring. So what I did is broke this down into categories. And when Phoenix gets 50 or more rebounds, they're 6-0. This is December and January only. When they're 44 to 49, they're 4-0. Oh, and in that first category, 50 and over, their average margin of victory is 22.3 points. So 50 or more rebounds, they blow people out. 44 to 49, they're 4-0, and the average margin of victory is 9.8. So still a good win, but not nearly as big as 50 or more. They had one game where they had 41. This was sort of an outlier. They're usually actually quite a bit higher or quite a bit lower. And in that one, they lost by 16. And then if they have 38 or less, they're 0-4 and average losing by 11.8 points. So I looked at that in terms of what Phoenix does rebounding and what that means for them. But then I also went and looked at what the Pelicans allow in terms of rebounding. And again, Valanciunas should have a good matchup here to get some rebounds in. So they've allowed 50 or more rebounds only one time in December and January. And they lost by 15 when they did that. So if the Suns can rebound the ball here, they should handle the Pelicans easily. But I don't think they necessarily will because of this specific matchup. But there is that percentage chance that could happen. When they allow 44 to 49 rebounds, they're 2-2 and average negative 4.5 point differential. 40 to 43 rebounds. They've done that 5 times. So this is the largest percentage for the Pelicans. They're 3-2 in those games with a point differential of plus 0.04 or 0.4. And then they've held opponents under 40 rebounds 4 times. And they've still only gone 2-2 in those games, but the point differential is -2. So it's not that the Pelicans have done so well when they allow less rebounds, but that the Suns are so tied to their rebounding in terms of their outcome in games. So I know this is getting to be a lot, but let me just get to the point here. Because what I felt like I was able to do on this game is determine, like, what's the percentage chance that this stays close-ish? Because the spread is the Pelicans plus 8.5, so it's fairly wide. So do we think it's going to stay within that spread? So if you put those percentages together in terms of how often the Suns get a certain number of rebounds and how often the Pelicans allow it, there's about a 23.5% chance that it's 50 or more. If that happens, I think the Suns cover the spread. But that leaves what's left. So got to do math quick, 76.5% chance that it's less than 50 rebounds. And if it's less than 50 rebounds, I think there's a very solid chance that this stays within the 8.5. So based on this analysis specifically, I would say it looks to me like somewhere around a 75% chance that the Pelicans are able to cover this number with the spread and a 25% chance that they don't. And so because of that, I definitely am leaning toward the Pelicans and the points in this matchup. I do want to watch to make sure Brandon Ingram's going to play because it really hurts them off. I know last night he was so bad. Already 16.7% from the field and 14.3% from three-point range. So that's terrible. But he's so important for them. So if he doesn't play, I'd probably be off this. But if he plays, I like this for the Pelicans with the spread here. When I lined this myself, I had it as Phoenix -5. So again, if it's 8.5, that I see some value there. And I had a total of 225, which the last time I looked, it was 223.5. So that's a little closer. In terms of any trends here, Phoenix is 4-1 in their last 5 versus New Orleans against the spread. And so that's something to consider. They've done well on the trends against the spread. The over is 7-2 in the last 9 in this matchup. And so the over is something I would look at too. I think especially if I could get this live again, somewhere under 220. I don't think I'd feel super confident with it where it is right now, but man, we got some good live lines last night, even though they didn't all come through. And so that's something I would definitely look at again today. All right. Hopefully you made it through all that. I know that was a little bit deeper analysis than I do on all the games, but I geeked out a little bit on some of the numbers for that one. And hopefully it leads us to some good bets. Last game of the day is Sacramento and the Lakers. Like I said, I don't have quite as much on this one. It feels like a little bit harder one to get a hold on. Both these teams actually have really bad in-season trends for this specific matchup. Sacramento 7-9 against the spread away, 6-9 after a win, 9-16 on one day of rest. But then the Lakers on the other side, 7-15 against the spread at home, 6-13 as a home favorite, 5-13 after a win, 10-17 on one day of rest. So really just not good trends for either. The Lakers, one of the key numbers here is their field goal percentage at 50% or better. They've been doing that more regularly lately. And when they're able to do that, they're definitely putting themselves in a better position to win or at least to score more points, which Sacramento has struggled to do. Sacramento's only allowed over 50% in one of their last 5, though. So they've, I guess, been playing okay defense. Sacramento's just one of these teams that I think is so hard to ever trust for anything. They have some talent. It feels like they should be okay, but they've just been pretty terrible overall. Sacramento's just played poorly here lately, but probably not much of a change from any other time. In terms of trends on this one, very, very bad against the spread trends for Sacramento, and then just bad against the spread trends for the Lakers. So no positive trends for anybody here against the spread. Little bit of a trend for the under, 9-3 in the last 12 in LA. And then one trend in this specific matchup is Sacramento's 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 against the Lakers specifically. So, a little bit of a trend lean there, but Sacramento's just not a team I'm going to trust. So it does feel like the Lakers have been playing a little bit better here lately. My issue is their strength of schedule. They played Minnesota, first game back for Edwards and Vanderbilt, and then still without Towns and Russell. So not a great game, not a great matchup. They beat Portland, who has nobody. That's the game that I think people are getting excited about because the Lakers scored 139 points. But Portland's so bad right now, and they've been so bad away from home all year that I just don't think you can do much with that game. The Lakers lost to Memphis. Memphis is playing well, but they only scored 99 points in that game. Like, that seems like same old Lakers. Then the Lakers scored 132, but that was against Houston. And who doesn't score 130 against Houston? And then the Lakers scored 115 against Brooklyn, which I guess is okay. They lost by 7. So all that to say, I think there's a little bit of a narrative out there right now that the Lakers are figuring it out and kind of getting it rolling. And I'm just not sure that's true. I mean, they play another bad team here in Sacramento. So if I had to lean, I probably would lean with the Lakers here, but definitely not enough to take them at the current spread. This is a game where I'm unlikely to have anything. If I get some extra time, I may try to look at a couple other angles to try to find something. That's always fun to have something on the night game, but definitely not the best spot I see for today. So appreciate you guys listening in today. Hopefully some of that stuff was helpful for you as you're picking out your bets. Give me a follow on Twitter at NBA Attack with 1A. Give the video a like, and we'll see you. Planning to do this again at least tomorrow, maybe the next couple days before I'm out for a bit with the surgery. So hope to see you back tomorrow, and I'll see you on Twitter. Have a good day.